Hello everyone and welcome to a new video of Mr. Mark Explains History, and today we'll continue with our mini-series about time periods, and we're going to focus on the early modern age. So quick overview of the 5 periods we're talking about. If you have not seen the videos about prehistory, ancient history, Middle Ages, I would recommend you to check them out because it will be easier to understand what's happening right now, what we're going to talk about in the early modern age. When did the early modern age start? I already told you the same things at the end of the Middle Ages video. So of course, when Middle Ages end, the early modern age starts. So that is around 1500. And there's a lot of developments that take place at the same time that really lead to a new way of thinking, a new mentality that changes a lot in Europe. For example, the Renaissance, the rebirth of ancient Greek and Roman culture. People start to look back at that. They are very curious. They're copying these styles, this architecture. And they also look at science and philosophy from that time. And they get inspired by that, and they also have a new mentality that puts the human in the center of the universe called humanism. And there's really a shift from this memento mori attitude in the Middle Ages, remember that you die, very negative, to carpe diem, seize the day, to really make something of your life here on Earth. So Renaissance is very important, the printing press is super important, one of the most important inventions ever, I would say. The printing press enables knowledge and books and documents to be spread way faster and at a much cheaper price. So where books before are super expensive, they become much cheaper, and this will lead to a lot of great things. I'll talk about that more in the culture section, the cultural characteristics. Fall of Constantinople, which means there's a more shift from also a lot of scientists and books and knowledge coming from the east to the west. The discovery of America, so there's a whole new world to study and explore and colonize and exploit. I'm also going to talk about that in a second. And Martin Luther starts the Reformation, where the Christian church is split into two, so Catholic Church and Protestant Church. And this also leads to a lot of new ways of thinking and looking at the world. Before, the Catholic Church said, this is what is true, this is what God wants, and there's no doubt about that. And now there's so many different versions of Christianity that people don't really know what to believe and have to be a bit more critical. Very quickly, why is early modern age called early modern? Because in this period, the first steps towards modernity are made. So a lot of seeds are planted for a modern way of life, modern ways of thinking in the early modern age. So it's really the start of this transition from traditional way of life and thinking to modern ways of life and thinking. Some characteristics about, let's say, political changes, what is changing politically. First of all, the process that started in the Middle Ages, where governments and states became more powerful, that continues. There's more centralization, so the country is ruled from one place. And this power, these stronger governments, there's 2 ways that are developing, broadly speaking. Sometimes power is shared a bit more with a larger group. For example, there's a parliament in Great Britain. Also in the Dutch Republic, there's a group of people ruling and not just one guy. But in other countries like France and Russia and the Austrian Empire, kings and queens have 100% power. And that's what we call absolutism. Louis XIV, he's very famous for saying, I am the state, and that's pretty much true. He had 100% power. What he decided happened. And so he built also these magnificent palaces, such as in Versailles. Other thing happening is that the Europeans explore the world and start colonizing and taking over the world. In this period, mostly in the Americas. Also African coast and some places in Asia, Australia. So European empires are founded, such as the Spanish one is the biggest one at the start. So the influence of Europe is spreading in the world, and will continue to spread also in the modern age. This trend starts here. Quick overview of these empires. So in South America, the Spanish have quite a large empire. This is also why everyone speaks Spanish here nowadays, and why people in Brazil speak Portuguese nowadays, because Portugal colonized that. The English and French in North America, why people speak French here and English in America. This all starts at this time. Some things about the economy, about social developments, about people, jobs and money. So there's also global trade because of these European explorations and these European empires. The Europeans start trading with the whole world and colonize part of the world. They also discover a lot of new products, and people in Europe start to love those new products, such as coffee and tobacco and potatoes. Potatoes really become the staple food. And the group who participates in that also becomes very rich. So the merchants who do all this trading, they become very rich, and they turn into some kind of upper middle class, which we call the bourgeoisie, with a fancy word, French word. So rich citizens who are not nobles or clergy. So they are rich, but they're not noble. And they also invest in trade. We see the first stock companies. And the gap between rich and poor is still very big. So this stays the same compared to Middle Ages. Also, most people are still farmers and live in the countryside. And high mortality and high fertility. So this means that a lot of people die and a lot of babies are born, and also a lot of babies die because 50% of children dies pretty much before they become adult. Here's a little example of that global trade, the famous triangular trade. So products from Europe, such as guns, were sold to African slave traders. Enslaved people were brought to the Americas, where they had to work in terrible conditions on plantations, and the products from these plantations, such as cotton, sugar, tobacco, were sold in Europe. And a lot of people become very rich from this trade, and a lot of people were terribly exploited in this trade. Then the cultural characteristics in the early modern age. First of all, I already told you the split in the Catholic Church, that the Catholic Church split into two. So also a Protestant church, which then split into many other churches. So there's loads of different Christian churches. Very importantly, there's two major developments in science. A scientific revolution, loads of discoveries being made about nature. I think Newton is the most famous, that he discovers gravity. People really start to learn a lot about nature, invent a lot of new things. So there's scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, where people develop new ways of thinking about power, equality, about society, also about the economy. So they are different. What they share is that they both really want to know how the world works. One focuses more on the nature, another one more on human society. Again, you could make only about Enlightenment. I could make 10, 15 videos probably to properly explain that. But there's no time for it. So just remember, big hunger for knowledge and loads of new things are being discussed and discovered. And I think the encyclopedia is an amazing example of that. They try to put everything they know into one big book. And the printing press also plays a big role in all of those things, because you could share and print so much books and documents, and this helps with literacy, with more schools, with there's like books made about cooking, about traveling. For the first time, there's books about everything in this period. Then, why does it end? Why does the early modern age end? Because there are two big revolutions taking place around this time. One is the Industrial Revolution, and this totally changes the ways things are being made. So first everything is made by hand, and now we see factories being constructed who can produce way faster than people can by hand, of course. So there's way more production and there's an economic boom. And most people, so I said for most of history, people are farmers and live in the countryside, and this is slowly changing towards laborers and the city. The second thing is the French Revolution, and this is a total different way of looking at power and politics. So within the French Revolution, they famously killed their king under the guillotine, and they should say that people should have power and no kings. So government should be working for the people and run by the people. So for the people, by the people, that's really this motto from the French Revolution. And these two revolutions totally change society, the economy, culture, everything, and lead to modernity. So in the next video, we're going to talk about that, about the modern age, the characteristics, why it started, ended, etc. So thank you for watching and hope you learned a lot. Leave some comments, share some feedback if you can, and see you next time.